Over the years, the professional wrestling industry has seen many faces come and go. We've seen wrestlers that are universally beloved, right through to individuals that can't have their names mentioned without an uproar of toxicity and negativity following close by. In this video today, I present to you 10 most hated people in wrestling. Before I get into the 10, however, I want to make the criteria abundantly clear. Since naturally this video and the people involved, the criteria is very important in choosing who's involved. So firstly, every person that we mentioned in this video is hated for various reasons. No two are the exact same. Once again, I'm not for a second saying that guys who are hated for their wrestling opinions or their booking on a kayfabe show are nearly as bad as individuals who are hated for having committed unspeakable crimes or having covered up tragedies. That's the thing I need to stress. Not everyone in this list is hated for the same reason. Because apparently I need to reiterate that, since when I usually put this kind of stuff out, people don't really get that kind of message. So not everyone is on this list for the same reason. I'll explain each case accordingly. This video, I merely did it because I was thinking out loud, who are the 10 people in wrestling that are consistently generating the most overwhelmingly negative and toxic reaction just generally in the wrestling community? And accordingly, this video got created. And also, last thing, there are no rankings to this because that just isn't right. I'm merely presenting 10 of the most hated people in wrestling, and you can do with that what you will. So without further ado, let's get into this. Okay, before I get into the actual 10 itself, just want to do a couple of honorable mentions. First honorable mention, I've got the Elite. Now, these, constructing of AEW vice presidents or EVPs, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and Cody Rhodes. These guys have been hated on at length since founding All Elite Wrestling, from Kenny Omega being bashed over the booking of AEW's women's division to his own booking. You've had Cody Rhodes getting bashed for hogging the spotlight and making shows all about himself. We've had the Young Bucks being hated upon for their forthright insecurity and incompetency at times as EVPs of AEW. Personally, I felt as though the Elite being in the conversation for most hated people in wrestling was reasonable, considering the negativity that tends to follow when you bring their names up. Objectively speaking, however, compared to essentially literally everyone else on this video, the hate for the Elite is hardly that reasonable at all. So that's the Elite. Next honorable mention, I've got Vince Russo. Now, this is the original master of the term bro. When it comes to mentioning Russo's name, you're always going to get some sort of hate and negativity generated online. General causes for this and reasons why this is a thing include Russo's supposed overestimation of his own abilities, claiming responsibility for many of the Attitude Era's successful storylines, even though he wasn't perhaps involved in some of them and wasn't solely him, that kind of thing. Additionally, some of his worst ideas, notably the Brawl for All and a bunch of stuff, particularly in WCW 2000. WCW 2000 and Vince Russo go hand in hand, from Vince Russo winning the WCW World Title to, the shoot promos, the Goldberg stuff, So Vince Russo, when you bring his name up nowadays, you get some hate naturally. So that's Vince Russo. And with that being said, time to move in to the 10 most hated people in wrestling. So I'm starting off, the first person I've got to mention, Ryback. Now, when you bring up Ryback, negative energy seems to flow out the wazoo. This guy, his reputation ever since he was, left WWE and he was let go, ever since then, really, you don't hear much positivity coming out from Ryback, and and as a result of that, you hardly get any positivity going back in his direction. Okay, Ryback puts out negative energy, be that takes about WWE on his podcast, comments about AEW on his show, just general negativity that Ryback puts out. He gets negativity and hate back from, the fans and the community, supposedly. So Ryback's coming in there. Then I've got, a 2-in-1 here, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Now, these two I've put hand in hand because, they both work with Wrestling Observer, F4W Online. They both work in this, same kind of capacity. Okay, these guys, from little things like, the wrestling fans hating Dave Meltzer's star ratings, and how dare Meltzer give this match 5 stars, it should have been 4 stars. So, from that kind of stuff to takes about, Alvarez and Meltzer on the AW payroll, like that kind of stuff, that's a bit more light on, but is general negativity and toxicity. Then you get the kind of hate that's generated from the takes they've had about Roman Reigns with the leukemia in the past couple of years, discrediting Roman Reigns' leukemia. Brian Alvarez in November of last year commenting about his friend's leukemia, saying leukemia essentially isn't that bad, to paraphrase. Then Dave Meltzer infamously critiquing, and really questioning the legitimacy of the leukemia. There was that. Then more recently, it's Dave Meltzer's takes like Apollo Crews' Nigerian prince gimmick is horribly racist, even though legitimate ambassadors from Nigeria have praised it publicly for positive representation. Meltzer and Alvarez, these two go hand in hand, so I felt it would be fitting for them to both share a spot in the 10 most hated people in wrestling. So that's Meltzer and Alvarez. Then moving on, Jim Cornette. Now, Jim Cornette, I mentioned Ryback a moment ago, as far as that whole thing where you put out a bunch of negative energy on your podcast, on your YouTube show, and in turn, a lot of negative energy will come back your way. That's much the same with Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette will make bold, brash, brazen takes about modern pro wrestling, be that a certain wrestler, for example, Penelope Ford, be that a style of wrestling, such as the AEW, the indie quote-unquote style. He'll have his favorites, like an FTR and that type of wrestler, and he'll bash, go out of his way to bash loudly and boldly anyone who doesn't meet that criteria. So Jim Cornette, you can take your pick with the takes he's made over the years, and especially the past couple of years. I'm not going to repeat them on video. If you want to go check out Jim Cornette's stuff, go do that, feel free. So it seemed obvious that Jim Cornette would have a spot in the 10 most hated people in wrestling. So just Jim Cornette. Next up, Lars Sullivan. Lars Sullivan, this one is a very different reasoning to a Jim Cornette or like a Ryback or a Meltzer. When it comes to Lars Sullivan, this one, I think most of us are pretty cognizant as to why Lars Sullivan is appearing here. Essentially, there's the whole, I'll call it the Mitch Bennett stuff, the adult film career, I guess. I'll phrase it like that. You guys are probably pretty cognizant of what I'm talking about. That kind of stuff, just, it lingers with Lars Sullivan. Other controversial comments he's made that have come up and resonated. Lars Sullivan, generally speaking, not a popular person by any means. When you mention Lars Sullivan, what comes with Lars Sullivan's name is a lot of just, vulgarity, toxicity, negativity, and in that regard, he fits seamlessly into the criteria, and that's why he fits into the top 10 most hated wrestlers or people in wrestling. So Lars Sullivan fits there. Then I've got the Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream, this one, it all spawned off the back of allegations that really kind of surfaced in about late April, May of 2020, so last year. These allegations involving Patrick Clark, Velveteen Dream, and I'm not going to specifically go into the allegations. You guys, most of you will be pretty cognizant as the allegations. Very damning allegations that really just have tarnished his reputation, tarnished his career. The fact that he's still actively employed by WWE genuinely surprises myself and a lot of people. So in that regard, just those allegations alone, career derailing allegations, Velveteen Dream, he just doesn't get a positive rep, online, and nor should he, considering these allegations. So yeah, Velveteen Dream fits in here. Then I've got Alberto Del Rio. I mean, yeah, Alberto El Patron. He had his career in WWE, back 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15. He left 2016. Ever since then, the last 5 years for Alberto Del Rio, there was the stuff with Paige, which was just toxic, dude. The stuff with Paige, all the allegations and things that came out about the Paige situation, not really stuff that I want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Then other things Del Rio's gotten up to in the past couple of years. He's definitely far and away one of the 10 most hated people in wrestling as far as just his reputation today because of things that happened in the past 5 years especially. So Del Rio fits in there. Next up, Joey Ryan. Joey Ryan, when it comes to this guy, my God, allegations out the wazoo. You've got negative press, negative attention. You bring up Joey Ryan and you'll be hard-pressed to find people who genuinely think in a positive space when it comes to Joey Ryan. Just generally speaking, you bring up Joey Ryan, a lot of vulgarity, a lot of toxicity, a lot of negative energy. When I thought of this video concept, Joey Ryan was near enough towards the forefront of it. So Joey Ryan fits in there. Now we've got 3 to go. Once again, this is not in a specific order. This is just generally 10 people, or the 10 most hated people in wrestling. So next up, Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, I mean, we've seen this very recently with how he was received at WrestleMania 37 when he was the host alongside Titus O'Neil. Hulk Hogan, due to events involving a certain tape and a certain, racial slur that was used in the 2000s by Hulk Hogan that came out in a tape, due to that, Hulk Hogan has had a forever tarnished reputation. Yes, this is the man who put wrestling on the map in the 80s and was huge in the 90s and even big in the early 2000s. But really, ever since a certain tape leaked, ever since stuff about Terry Bollea, the man, has come out, Hulk Hogan as the wrestler and just the person, his reputation's been tarnished big time. A lot of negative energy, a lot of negativity comes out surrounding him. Even recently, when a young boy was wearing Hulk Hogan merchandise, posing, pretending he was the Hulkster. And that received, that child, just for doing that and showing support for a guy who was his wrestling hero, that child, who was 8, 9, received a heap of negative press, negative slander, negative attention, just hate. This kid got cancelled just for showing support for Hulk Hogan. So Hogan, far and away, is one of the top 10 most hated people in wrestling, no debate. Next up, Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon, he's done a lot of good over the years in giving us memories and moments that last a lifetime as wrestling fans, but a lot of dirt on Vince McMahon has come out over the years. A lot of stuff Vince has done, from the steroid trial and infamous stuff back in the early 90s, just very a lot of stuff that's been really swept under the rug, a lot of stuff that we don't even know about, just because of Vince McMahon's status and power in just the industry and just the world as a whole. A lot of stuff that this man has done hasn't really seen the light of day. Now, we're consciously aware of some of this, thanks to things like Dark Side of the Ring, but generally speaking, we're not aware of a lot of what Vince has got up to. I mean, covering up murders, supposed, and all this kind of stuff, and all this stuff that Dark Side of the Ring goes into great detail about. Vince McMahon, he definitely earns his place as far as one of the top 10 most hated people in wrestling, and just generally for what he's done to WWE in the past decade alone. So that's Vince McMahon. And then lastly, last but not least, Chris Benoit. He who must not be named, even though I just named him. Chris Benoit, I don't really think I need to elaborate or really explain much with this one. You guys, once again, should be fairly cognizant as to why Chris Benoit has a place in this video. Essentially, what happened in 2007 forever stained and tarnished the legacy of professional wrestling, how professional wrestling is seen in a mainstream sense. Benoit, due to what happened, his name is forever stained, and rightfully so, considering what went down. So that's all I'll say about Benoit, and that's going to be the video. The top 10 most hated people in professional wrestling. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, sub. Here's another drill. Who have I forgotten? Who have I not mentioned? Leave it down below. Like, comment, sub.